Hello, I'm Zarganart. Welcome to the studio. And it still feels like I want to say, and on the programme tonight. On the programme tonight, we're going to do some more of these magic dots. We are going to get closer to finishing off this. Tiger. Right, so what's been happening today? Well, on my end, not a lot. I've moved some planters today, which involved emptying them, moving them, but that's about it. Been out today. Moorland, there's moorland near where we are, and it's been windy today and cold and icy and snowing. Absolutely beautiful out on the moorland because of all that. Extremely restful as well. You sit in the car, it's warm because we've had the heating on. Turn the engine off. I would say it's silenced, but it's not, because you can hear the wind, and the wind is just well, I find the wind extremely relaxing in that particular circumstance. I could just close my eyes, lay back, and I probably could go to sleep quite easily, but okay, right. So apart from that, I'm not doing a great deal today. I did spend 20 minutes on the phone, well, 30 minutes on the phone, waiting to talk to an organisation today about something. That wasn't a very fun time, but you know what, I'm just thinking, it's I kind of have I'm trying to think, just my mind just goes blank. It's been a bit of a tiring day, and I guess I should have spent some time thinking about a subject to talk about tonight, but I didn't. I did spend some time today thinking about things like the model railway layout, if I start that at some point, just how I want to do it in terms of constructing it and things like that. Because the one thing about the model layout, if I do it, is often what you get is you get the layout and then you get things like what they call a fiddle yard, which is sort of off camera, back of house, all sorts of descriptions for it. Fiddle yard being what you fiddle with the engines. set up and store things. And well, excuse me. If I build a layout, one of the things I want is everything is on camera. Everything is front of house. If there's a fiddle yard, it's part of the layout. It's not, you know, something, you know, a magical hand behind the scenes type of thing. It's not backstage, it's all front of stage. And that's would be an interesting challenge in its own right. Having everything front of house. So all the wiring that you normally do with layouts, and some of them, some of the ones I've seen have, shall we say, interesting wiring. Even if I was doing it off stage, I'd be doing things like bundling the wiring or whatever. Everybody just seems to string it, either from hooks or drilling holes through wood or whatever. Just string the great big loops of wire, long lengths, which just sort of come down and swoop in. I don't know how people. Well, it's me, isn't it? Like I said, I don't know how people can have layouts like that, but they do. I want everything kind of neat. So I'd do things like bundle wires, you know, tie them up, clip them to the wood so that they're in nice neat runs all bundled together, possibly even tie them, lace them with string, wax string actually, do the job properly. But my intent with this is, if I do it, is to make it. I've got a particular scene in mind, so the wiring would have to be done very much like it would be if it was real life-ish, in that it's in cable trunks and things like that, and properly tied up in cabinets and things. It's going to be an interesting exercise to do that if I go ahead. It's something I'd like to do in the future, because I do have, I think it's 1 or 2 engines coming at some point. Hopefully, maybe. Up to 9 engage and N scale engines. Which will come sometime this year, I think. And it would be nice, rather than just having them sat on the shelf, to actually be able to do something with them eventually. So lots of things I want to do, like the, I already mentioned the glass work. Well, I haven't decided on if I like that. I haven't decided on a torch. Sounds like I'm going to do it. I don't know if I'm going to do it, but if I am going to do it, I want to have decided on what I want. And I do want to sort of buy things sort of as a kit, but not exactly. So I do want to. I will be buying a bundle, and that's about the better way of putting it. So I get everything I want at a reasonable price. But I'm not quite sure what torch I want yet. It's sort of a trade-off or would be a trade-off, buying the best I can afford, or the biggest that I can afford. That's a good torch. That will handle the oxygen supply I can give it. I don't want to be on bottled oxygen to start with. Too expensive. The engage stuff is going to be fun doing that. Different concept, so I want to keep the concept secret until I start doing it, just because I can. No other particular reason. As I say, everything wants to be on stage, including the stuff that would normally be off stage, like the fiddle yard. So hopefully if I get can do it. It'll be on two. I was going to say 2 layers. It'll actually be 3 layers. Because I actually want to incorporate a T-scale layout in there as well. I can't remember what the T stands for, other than tiny. 2mm I think, off the top of my head. So track gauge is 2mm. And since 2mm is 4.5 feet, that's quite a tiny scale. As I mentioned, everything wants to be computer controlled. Because once this thing is done, I probably don't want to play with it. Just let the computer play with it. Hi Dawns, hello. It should be okay. I don't mind turning it down a bit. Right, let's drop that volume down a little bit. There we go. I should have cut the volume in half. I'm a little bit tired, so I have the habit of also dropping my voice, but shouldn't be doing too bad now. Okay. I'll have to have a listen back to that, unless of course OBS has started doing things. Welcome to both of you, Montage, Dorms, hi Dorms, welcome. Something... yeah, well if you can hear me that's a good thing. That's kind of the whole point, isn't it? I shall have to have a listen back to it because I thought I got the audio, but things have changed a little bit since I last set it up, including new versions of OBS, so maybe it's decided it's going to up the broadcast volume and I didn't notice. Thank you for mentioning it. How are you doing? I was just talking about things, sort of plans for... well, plans is a bit of a strong word, but sort of thoughts for something in the future that probably will occur on stream. Things like a model railway if I build one, or the glass blowing if I do the glass blowing, or glass work, flame work, all sorts of titles for the same thing. It still amazes me. My head, as you might see, is almost in the same place as the camera, and yet you get a lot better view of this than I do. I don't know what it is about cameras, and they always seem to show a better picture. Yes, I was just talking about T-scale, wasn't I? Tiny scale. I always want to call it tiny scale. 2mm between tracks. That's a tiny thing. 1mm to 2.25 feet. It's the sort of model railway that you can build a whole layout in that space. In fact, it probably is about right, because one of these squares is about 2mm, although I'm not sure you can see the squares. Well, you sort of can. So a nice thing about magic dots is it's quite relaxing to do this sort of thing. Except when you get a dot that won't quite go into place and you're just trying to ease it and it won't. And it gets a bit annoying, but And at least I'm not dropping these on the floor like I did the other night. I did it twice. Whole tray of these. This is half a tray now. And dropped it on the floor twice. They take some picking up to these things. Yeah, because that's the other thing I was thinking of with the T-scale, just to ease into model railway buildings. Before I build a big layout, build a little tiny one in T-scale. There's a nice. Whilst for the big layout with the T-scale bit, I'd be doing my own coaches on the T-scale bed. If I do a coffee table layout, which you can get at 2mm scale, you can get quite a lot in quite a small space. So that would be a project for the future. I'm trying to decide what to start and do next week, because we'll finish this soon. I don't know how long soon is, because I'm no good at estimating these. Having done one of these which was about twice, yeah, literally twice this size, which took several weeks to do, it kind of fools you how many dots there are to fill in on this sort of stuff. It looks like it only ought to take you sort of a few hours, and sort of 20 hours later you're still going. We're not doing too bad. I think we've only done 2 streams, so that's about 3.5 hours so far on this, so we're getting on quite well. I'm not quite halfway there, but I was thinking of doing some stabby needle stuff. Forgotten what it gets called generally. I call it punchcraft, because that's what the manufacturer calls it, but you're punching a needle through material. But I was thinking, I've got quite a lot of wool sat behind me from I used on another project. Well, I used some of it on another project, and what I was thinking of doing was just making a rug, a fairly large sort of rug. I don't know, 3 foot by 2 foot, something like that. But it involves using a needle, which is the needle itself is about that long. Looks like a hypodermic, and you literally stab it through the material repeatedly. Which is fun if you're holding it with the material with your hand like that, and then you are stabbing the needle through the material. It gets quite fun. But normally I'll actually use some sort of frame, although I'm not sure I've got one for a rug that size. So I may well end up having to hold one of those, which could prove interesting. To prove even more interesting if I slip and hit myself, because you've kind of got to push the thing a little bit hard to get it through when it's that sort of size, because literally the needle is the size of that copper thing on the end of here. And I've not done any of the punchcraft for a while, so normally I'll do a picture, something about that sort of size, when I do punchcraft, and do it with cottons rather than wool. So the rugs is quite a large undertaking. Goes pretty quick though. That is one of the nice things about that particular craft, is it does progress quite quickly. So you sort of always feel like you're making progress while you're doing it. Some of these things, sometimes like the carving that I was doing a couple of days ago, some things go really fast when you're carving, and some things take an absolute age to do, and it just seems like you're never making any progress and you're not getting anywhere, and then all of a sudden you'll do another bit, and then it just, you blow through quite a few things. Hello, Wolfie. Really? Really what? Because don't forget, you're about 30 seconds behind me, and I've already forgotten. My memory is about 20 seconds long. Have you finished watching your series? What I'm telling you. Yeah, so I've gone in about the last 30 seconds, he says, having said I've only got about 20 seconds memory. I've been talking about model railways, T-scale layouts, and stabbing punchcraft stuff. You got to episode 10. There were some series where I've sort of not on Netflix, but where I sort of wanted to watch them all in a row. I can only watch so many, and then even if they're really exciting and you want to see what happens next, after a while it's kind of I've got to go away and have a rest. It just gets too much. My limit is about 5 hours, and after about 5 hours, it's I need to do something else for a while. But that is also partly, I guess, because of me, because just me generally. I don't like sitting about doing nothing. I always, if I'm watching something, I like to be doing something else at the same time. Whether it's sort of programming on the computer or something like that, or generally speaking, so after a few hours, it's I've got to do something else as well. Okay, I shall have a look after the end of the stream. Wolfie, at that. I ought to make some YouTube videos. I keep saying that, and I kind of started planning out a pyrography series of YouTube videos, but again, making progress with doing them is actually sort of harder than it. It's a lot easier to stream. Even though streaming isn't particularly easy, it's a lot easier to stream than it is to do YouTube videos. Basically, almost with YouTube videos, you kind of need a script. Not necessarily a word-for-word script, but what do we call it? A storyboard. So that you know where you're going and which bits you've done and which bits you haven't done, and things like that. What sort of layout you're going to end up with. It's 3 seconds. Alright. Well, I'll play it on here then, so I can't remember whether I've got it muted or not, so. Oh, snowboarding. Oh, that's nice. And cancel. Cancel, I said. They really want you to watch videos, don't they? Not videos. Adverts. Oh, is that a multiplayer? Oh, was it? Was it somebody flying? I saw the drone. I didn't realise it was somebody else. Oh, I thought that was a drone. I did. I thought that was a quadcopter that was sort of following, as part of the sort of the game, if you like, filming you type of idea, so that you've got a realistic reason why you're in third person. Because I just sort of saw this shit that looked a bit like a quadcopter. It was a person. Right. Yeah, he was moving, wasn't he? Yeah. I'm not sure though you'd have had that meant that he'd have been airborne for that long. Not unless he was coming off a ski ramp somewhere. Looks like kind of an interesting sort of game to play though, just from the point of view of just doing it as a, not the tricks and stuff, but you jump so high. Yeah, that I kind of mentioned it the other night, didn't I? That again, it just reminded me of the snowmobile game that we used to play here. I must actually. Well, it's one of the things maybe I'll have a look tonight, just for the fun of it, because I won't pick it up. But just see if there's any sort of snowmobile type games that are not multiplayer. Not really all that. I'm not a public multiplayer. I don't mind playing sort of games on private servers, but I'm not really one for playing sort of these open world, these open multiplayer servers, you know, like the World of Warcraft stuff and things like that. It ought to be something that they do, just thinking about it, on a game like that which is multiplayer. They ought to let you be, you know, add a mode to it where you could be, for example, a drone pilot, so you follow another player, where, you know, piloting your drone to take video of them, and you know that gets posted somewhere or something, and you know you collect money for it, for example, in games, so you can buy better quadcopters or things. And sort of combine two things in the same game. It'd kind of be an interesting sort of add-on mechanic for something like that. Yeah, no, I agree. Multiplayer is fun, but it's kind of playing with people that you know, as opposed to just on there's anybody around. That's the. You know, I have played multiplayer games with sort of people that I've known. You know, yourself, for example. Well, no, we haven't played it, but you know what I mean. People that I know, as opposed to just going on there and then there's thousands. So playing with your friends. Don't have a problem with that. You know, it's just me. Oh yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it's a challenge and development. No, I understand. Yeah, that's part of the mechanic is you know, the fun of playing with other people, and I mean, when you know things like that where you're all right, we'll take you off completely. You're competing against real people as opposed to AI. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Especially if collision's enabled. The last multiplayer game I was on was Euro Truck Simulator, the multiplayer thing. Which is actually quite a while ago now, and that got, you mentioned high traffic places in Euro Truck, that would be the seaports, where there is literally hundreds of people. They're doing it properly, which is queuing to get on the ferries. And then you get the people who want to spoil it, who don't play it properly, because in those things the collision's turned off, so they just drive straight through everybody. It just doesn't feel they're spoiling it when they do that. And then you get the idiots that just want to spoil it for everybody, and they just go on and start ramming everybody in sight with a truck. And it's kind of... Eventually they get banned, but then they get another account and do it again, and then it becomes no fun. Especially because in Euro Truck Simulator you have to pay for the crashes. Let's get some more black in here, rather than mess about with the few that are there. I'm getting old. I've been doing shifting quite a bit of dirt today. Effectively, out of the containers, so I can empty the containers, so I can move the containers, and I can certainly feel that I've been doing it. I'm sure I'm going to wake up tomorrow, my back is going to go, that wasn't a good idea, that what you did yesterday. It might not have been a good idea, but it was something that I had to do. It says that I'm just out of practice at digging, which is more than likely. I thought you'd given up on the fence. Well, that's what you said the other night, you'd given up. Yeah, okay. So they didn't like that concept, so... Have you have they approved the new concept that you've come up with yet? Oh, you thought it's a game? No, no offence. No, because I remember you were doing it to show the concept of the thing, so that they can see what it looks like before it was actually made and what have you. So I was interested in how that was going. They're doing as we yeah, I suppose that's true. As we type, it's that's the sort of thing that triggers my amusement. Because if I'm having like at work, when I'm having an instant message conversation with somebody, and you say things like, as we speak, I'm doing what, but we're not speaking. Well, can you speak with a keyboard? That's an interesting philosophical question, which I'm not going to get into. But yeah, as we type is more appropriate. Well, hopefully they've given you enough feedback about what it was they didn't like for you to be able to redevelop it, rather than just saying nah. It's the worst people with things like that who go, no, I don't like it. Well, why don't you like about it? I just don't like it. Well, what would be better? I don't know, you're the designer. but you're the... Yeah. Hate people that do that. So, today's weather over here has been interesting. We've had snow and rain. It's been freezing cold. Well, for the UK it's been freezing cold. Oh, freezing. I suppose technically that's right, since it was about 0 degrees and the wind chill took it down to about -6. But 0's freezing. Yeah. For some places, and I know that's, you know, that's a nice warm day. We were in, it's a long time ago now, we're in Rovaniemi in Lapland. And when we got there, they said, "Oh, you're just in time for a heat wave, it's -12. Because to them, at the time, -12 was about sort of 10 degrees warmer than it normally was. Although I must admit, when you get the snowsuits on, you can't tell really. It was a fun place to go to, and near Christmas, and we went to see Santa. Went to see Santa Claus. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, we're out there. Went to see Santa Claus. Went to see the Santa's village where the elves were and the post office, and took a candlelight walk through a magical forest, with fairy lights and everything, and snowmobile safari in the one day, driving a snowmobile for the day. Then driving a reindeer sled. God, those things are mad when they go. And then in my case, or in our case, we on the way back we came back on Concorde. For the minute, you know, when I read that statement of yours there, Wolfie, how do you want your hair? I was thinking, what are you doing with my hair? You intending to sort of paint it or something? And then I realised what you'd said. I read the rest of it. Yeah, so that was a kind of a magical experience. And in fact, it's kind of that experience which always then amuses me afterwards, because whilst we were there, you know, the roads are ice. It's -12, snows, and there's no traffic jams or anything like that. And yet, you come to the UK, it snows a little bit, and the queues that go on for hours. People are banding in their cars, and yeah, over there, it's just normal. I always find it amusing. Mind you, even in the UK, you get weird things like that. When we spent some time, a few years ago now, in London around about Christmas, come down there for a few days, and we started, you know, one day we started seeing these weather warnings, snow weather warnings, and you know, warnings that, you know, rush hour would be effectively early because people were all going home because of the, you know, the snow that was falling, and the difficulties with travel and things like that. Certainly in central London. And Lady Zara and I sort of walk out of a tube station, if you like, at that point. I'm looking at, where's this snow? Can't see anything on the pavements are wet. Looking up, it's a bit of a grey sky, and then a few flakes started coming down, and that's about all that fell for the next several hours. Well into the night. I mean, Lady Zara and I were still walking about. It wasn't particularly cold. I don't think you ever sort of, even the pavement, I don't think the pavements ever sort of even went completely white. They were sort of, the odd white speckle for a while, a few white speckles for a while it melted. And yet all the Londoners were going home because of the severe weather warning. And we're thinking, why? Because up here, sort of in the middle of, in the Yorkshire region, a severe weather warning would be about a foot of snow. I'm exaggerating a little bit because that would still be a problem up here, but a few inches of snow would be just sort of, it's going to snow tonight, and we'd have the road crews out, gritting the roads and things. But you're playing game and you'll be watching, but not listening. Okay. Do I have to start talking in sign language? At one time I could spell in sign language, but that's all I could do. See? No, I can't remember much if anything about it. I don't even remember now why I learnt how to spell in sign language. So,
you have reached the voicemail box of Kino.
Being able to talk in sign language is a good skill. I suppose the other thing I could do maybe is, not at this moment in time, but rig up a light with a Morse key and start talking in Morse code.
Just wait for the tone. That
would be a good thing for these people who watch but don't have the sound up. They'd be able to follow the conversation then without needing to turn the sound up. And I'm kind of only half joking, because I suspect not many people on Twitch actually know Morse code or can read it from an Addis or a light source, and if they could to read it at the speed that I'd have to send it at normal conversation speed. Well, having said which, if somebody can read an Addis lamp, they can probably read it at a reasonable speed. And if you didn't know, an Addis lamp is something they used to use on ships to send light signals. Whether it's Morse code or not, but it has a shutter on the front of it with a handle which you move up and down, it lets light out and stops light coming in or going out, so it flashes.
Please leave your name, number, and a message after the tone.
I was just thinking that it's amazing what things I seem to know sometimes, and that suddenly led me on to thinking about wartime stuff for some reason. I wasn't around then, but I was thinking then about Bletchley Park and the code breakers and that were there, and that's a story I find absolutely fascinating, of the code breakers at Bletchley Park. And of course the people who broke the Enigma machines and the Tunny machines code, and were able to read all the wartime messages. And of course, effectively, the first computer, the first stored program computer, built there by a guy called Tommy Flowers. And of course it was top secret, so nobody knew about it for until, relatively speaking, just recently. So everybody thought sort of computers were first built somewhere else, and yet that was where, as far as I'm aware, the first one was built. Colossus. I gather they've rebuilt it now, but they can't rebuild the original because all the original plans were destroyed. And there's just sort of odd notes or sort of odd little bits that didn't manage to get destroyed because it was all destroyed. The whole thing was destroyed at the end of the war, I gather. But that's an absolutely fascinating story to read, especially if you read the story versions rather than the sort of documentary style ones. But they are an amazing story to read about sort of the bravery of I think it was the Polish that were instrumental in the initial breaking of the Enigma machine, and then the code breakers and how they sort of went about doing it. Kind of makes you wonder, because nobody at the time in the area knew what was going on, of course, and they didn't know. They knew there were people working at Bletchley Park, but they didn't know what they were doing. And I was just kind of thinking it must have been really hard for them, the people working there, not able to say what they were doing. I mean, even the locals who worked there, top secret men, they couldn't even tell their families, couldn't tell a partner what they were doing or even what was going on, and that must have been really really hard for them. Because you'd have had people sort of wondering, what are they doing, and why aren't they doing things for the war and stuff like that. Yeah, you can, if you've got something like if you've got any computer these days, but even the Raspberry Pi, you can make a replica of things like the Enigma machine. Even with things like the plug boards and the things, not the rotors, I don't think that's what the computer bit does, but things like the rotor, the plug board and stuff on it, that was there. And actually sort of, you can encode and decode Enigma codes. I gather sort of some of the computers these days, some of the supercomputers can sort of decode the message in seconds by trying every single possible combination, brute force, whereas back then they were doing it sort of intelligently. And it just shows you how things have kind of developed in a way. I find stories about things like that to be really sort of fascinating stuff. Not so much about it being history. It's about sort of just the work that went into these things. This down Bletchley Park actually has quite a nice sort of, it's quite a nice sort of attraction in the UK to visit. They've got quite a lot of displays about the work that went on there. That and the Y stations, the outlying places in various parts of the UK where the German messages were sort of intercepted, if you like, listened to in on the wireless. People would copy them down, send them off to somewhere that they didn't even know where they were going. They didn't know what the messages were, of course, because they appeared to be just random letters and numbers and things. And all that work going on in the background. Thousands, I say, hundreds of people maybe, and a lot of people like radio amateurs. I'm a radio amateur. Perhaps that's partly why it's of interest to me. Anything wireless sort of is an interest to me, So, and of course the Enigma machines, their messages were transmitted over wireless, and then Tunny, which was actually a wireless telegraphy, which is something which is of interest to me because I used to have a teleprinter. As a radio amateur, you can do that. Actually, a physical teleprinter, a great big clanking mechanical teleprinter, a Creed 5ERF. Can't remember what the RF actually stood for, but it meant it had a perforator, punch and reader. The R was a reader, it was a Creed 5E. The R was a reader and the F I think meant it had a punch. But there you go. Completely useless information, because these days you just do it on a computer. Which I did. I wrote my own programs back then to actually read the radio signals, not the signal, read the audio tones from the radio receiver, which was then converted into text, machine language, and the 6502 processor. That's computing history for you. 6502. These days, things like an app, like a Raspberry Pi, can emulate things like a 6502, running at full speed, and still have time left over to do lots of other things. It was amazing just how much you could do in machine language. And the first computer game was one of the second computer games. The first computer game was ping pong. I've just still got around somewhere, or did I throw it away? Maybe I gave it away. Just have it for long enough. A ping pong game, but the first computer game that I had was programmed on a 6502 computer. Asteroids, if anybody remembers the original Asteroids, and 1/4 kilobyte of memory. It fit in 256 bytes of memory. Not kilobytes, not megabytes, bytes. It fit in there. That included, I think, if I remember rightly, all the variable storage and everything else. So, yeah. So these days, when you get games on, gigabyte downloads, remember those early games. 1/4 kilobyte. And sometimes that's not because the games have got any better. You get better graphics and things, but nobody writes in machine code anymore, which is a highly efficient language to write in. If you can do it, it takes a bit of work. In fact, it takes a heck of a lot of work. But it's really compact and efficient if you do it right. But of course, these days they use sort of high-level compilers. It's okay, I'm getting old, but I've lived through the history of computers. Well, not quite, I guess we're just talking about the Colossus in the war, but I'm not quite that old. But sort of the general computing I have lived.
I didn't find general.
Why would you want to look for general? Anyway, yeah, I've lived through general computing. Kind of amazing. For me, personally, of course. I remember things that, you know, like the ZX80 and the ZX81 before the ZX Spectrum. I always wanted to have the ZX80 to build it as well as to actually use it. Never did get one. And never got the ZX81 nor the Spectrum. I did build my own mainframe computer at the time. That was the 6502, based on the 6502, built from a kit, because at that time I could not have designed one. I understood the designs, but I couldn't have designed one. So I built a mainframe. Definition of a mainframe: it's a computer which has a backplane and plug-in boards. That's it. So mine was fit in a 19-inch rack. It even had disk drives on it. At one point, 3 inch, 3.5 inch, 5 1/4. Yeah. High resolution graphics display. Of course, that was green screen, and I forgot what high resolution was. Something like 1200 pixels across, I think, at the time, which would have been fantastically high resolution. It had its own 6502 processor just to run the display, which of course is what they do now, really, isn't it, with your graphics processors. So I guess it was quite ahead of its time. And then I can remember having a BBC Micro for a while. Commodore PET, actually. No, that would have been the first one I had, Commodore PET. Timeline. When you get old, you see, your timeline goes out the window. I can remember having a Commodore PET. And always wanting to get the hard disk drive for it, but never did. No, floppy disk drives for it. Because it was a tape drive. It was actually built in. There was a tape drive. And you could get an external floppy disk drives, a pair of floppy disk drives for it. IEEE 488 bus. I can always remember that. Because nothing else works on that. That was Hewlett Packard that used to work on that. So if you ever did any Hewlett Packard stuff, your Commodore PET would talk to it. But I did a lot of stuff with that. Even, you know, but there again, back then I was kind of very wary about connecting anything into the back, into the ports of it, and doing stuff. Other people I know did, but you could get it to play some tones by having an audio amplifier on one pin of the thing on the back, and it was, if you put it on the wrong one, you can blow up the motherboard. That was a bit nerve-wracking. One reason why I built my own. Because that way, I'd understand it. And it is only last year I actually took to the recycling centre the computer that I built. Had it that long, and it still works. Or still worked at the time. Even the real-time clock that I'd built, which was separate, and plugged it in before I took it to the centre, I plugged it in. The real-time clock was still more or less accurate. It was about 5 minutes out, I think, and it hadn't been switched on for about 10 years. So I was kind of amazed by that. The last thing I did with that was I was sort of doing some development work. I was trying to get what they call a rugby clock. Rugby was a place where they used to transmit a time signal from over wireless, and I wanted to be able to receive that and decode it. Not that I particularly wanted the accurate clock, it was just something transmitted over wireless and I wanted to decode it. And I did did some development work on that particular on that processor just to prove that I could do it. And then I used a microcontroller in microcontroller machine language when I actually built a clock. We still have it somewhere. I gave it away to somebody as a present, and they ran it for non-stop for, well, other than power cuts, for about 20 years. So I was kind of proud about that. We do still have it around somewhere, because we eventually got it back, and I know it'll still run. It has its odd quirks. Like when the clocks go back, it doesn't change its time, or forward. It didn't change its time for 2 minutes afterwards, because it always had to. It always checked that the time hadn't changed significantly between. It had to get the same time twice, if you like, in order to update its display. Because occasionally you used to get, even though it was doing error checking, you'd get something that would say that error checked successfully, but said it was 63 minutes past 25 or something like that. And so I used to do I must get the same time twice, separated by a minute. And then, so when we went to British Summertime or back to GMT, it would be 2 minutes before the clock updated itself. Just because when you go from 1:59 to 1 o'clock, it went, this is suspicious. So it wait until the next one, it said 1:01. Oh, okay, and then at 1:02 it would switch. Its displays. But, it was never very accurate though when it lost its the time signal. It used to gain about an hour a day. But that was it wasn't using a clock chip or anything. That was literally in the program. It used to count milliseconds. Yeah, milliseconds, I think. All the loops had to be timed to, so whichever path it went down, like a branch or an if, what they call an if statement. If this, then do that, else do that. And they all had to be exactly the same length, so that no matter which way it went down, it always took so long, and the whole sort of loop program of the loop took exactly a certain amount of time in order for it to keep the internal clock reference going. And I learned quite a bit doing that. Things like because it also, when you use LED 7-segment displays, you know, the things that you used to see on the glowing things on clocks, they are what they call multiplex displays. Only one of the digits is ever lit at one particular time. They just light them and turn them off so quickly and loop it around that your eye, persistence of vision, your eye doesn't see the fact that it's off. So you turn one on, then turn it off, turn the next one on, turn it off, and so on. Which means that you don't need as many physical connections as you would if they were all on at the same time. But to do the multiplex, one of the things I learnt was that I had to scan all the digits, even if they weren't turned on, because if you didn't, the brightness changed. So when you went from 1 AM, for example, or you went from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, you turned the extra digit on, and if you weren't already scanning that digit even though it was off, then the display got dim because you suddenly started taking longer to scan them all, and things like that. You learn all sorts of stuff. It's amazing. You sort of thing that's got not a lot to do with electronics as such. It's kind of physics almost. But so yeah, and now so I remember pick microcontrollers. That was my first. They were the first things I ever sort of started playing with. They were absolutely fantastic. A whole computer on a little chip. Well, there were 14-pin chips back then. You can get them in 8-pin chips now. I think you can actually get them in 6-pin chips even. It sort of back then started to be the thing, you don't need all this, what was they used to call 7.4 TTL chips, because you could just have a little computer chip that did what all of these array of chips did before. That was sort of the start of the replacing hardware with computing chips, which has obviously just gone on and on. And then these days you get things like programmable logic arrays and other things that I've completely forgotten the name of at the moment. And nowadays, of course, the things like the Arduinos are sort of so accessible that sort of almost anybody can pick one up and write successful programs and do some pretty amazing things. I mean, quite literally these days, if you sort of wanted to, you can make your own keyboard, because you can buy the sort of the Arduino chip that will act like a keyboard for your PC. You can do something like, if in a game you need to press a particular key, and doing so is really awkward just because of you've got your fingers on WSAD, for example, and the other hand's busy on the mouse, and you need to press a key. I don't know, sort of the backslash key or something like that. That's real weird, and you can't do it. You can do things like buy yourself a foot switch. Buy one of these little sort of Arduino type devices, connect the foot switch to it, and just with a little tiny bit of programming, you sort of say, well, when you see this foot switch press, send this backslash key. You've suddenly got yourself an extra key on in your game that you can press with your foot, and make your life a lot easier. It's amazing what you can do. I've just picked a black thing up because it had slipped out of place, and I could see where it slipped from when I picked it up, but I can't find it now. Somewhere up there. Oh, there it is. There's a number 3. So. Okay, Wolfie. Have a good evening. Thanks for dropping in. I'll see you on the next stream. Not sure. I don't think I'm streaming tomorrow. It's my birthday, so I don't think I'll stream tomorrow. I think I'll have the night off, so the next stream will probably be on Tuesday. So have a good night. Enjoy your videos. As you watch, those of you who are watching this, you start to see these dots go on. You kind of don't really see them too much on the screen as such, except you sort of, the colour sort of seems to get a little bit better. These sorts of areas here is I've not done yet, but the black has, and it kind of looks a little bit more better colour. This area around here, but not the core of the eye. So it will start to look a little bit more better colour, better defined as the dots go on. You might see the odd one around, like down here. You're seeing sort of white dots. they're not white dots, they're actually reflections. That's what this thing is all about. Those are the reflections that you get from this. If I just move this slightly, you can see them, the sparkles. And I'm not moving this a great deal. If you imagine you walk past this and there's a light on it like this, it just shimmers and sparkles. It's quite a beautiful thing. Which is why these are kind of fun to do and to look at once they are done. You might not think so in terms of the fact that they are relatively low resolution. I mean, these must be what, 1, 2. It's probably either 5 or 6 dots to the inch. So they're not, you know, they're not fantastically high resolution, but they actually do look amazingly good. Of course, as you get further away, the resolution matters less. Which is why the camera sort of shows a different view, because the camera must be something to do with the focal length of the lens, but the camera is kind of giving the same view close up that I get from 6 feet away, and it wouldn't look as large. Like most of my art to some extent, I call it 6 foot art. Always looks better from 6 feet away. Yeah, so I'm on holiday tomorrow. I'm not at work, so I might end up playing some games for once, since I don't actually have anything else that I need to do tomorrow. I might actually get play some games for once. Last time I had a birthday, I had things I had to do, so I couldn't play games. So maybe this time, I don't know. I haven't thought about what to play though. Maybe some truck simulator, since I've still got the wheel out. Or maybe a farming simulator, since I haven't played that for such an awfully long time. And it won't be long now before there's a new version of that out. I think 2000 Farming Simulator, it is 17, so the next one, yeah, is 19, which should be out later this year. I know we're quite early into this year, but that's going to be interesting to see what they do this time to add to it. I've got a feeling that there's been discussions or whatever, suggestions that seasons are going to be in there. That could make for interesting things. I quite enjoy things like the Farming Simulator and the Euro Truck Simulator, the American Truck Simulator. The interesting things I've found is I can't play Euro Truck Simulator with the infrared, what was it, Track IR. I always end up going off the road. It's got to be something to do with the fact that as I turn my head and I can see the screen move, it's kind of like the truck's turned and I change the wheel and I end up driving into things. I can't play with Track IR for that. So what I end up, because I've got 3 monitors, what I end up doing is running them in as a large white screen. So with Euro Truck Simulator, what you can do is tell it you're using 3 screens. And you get the full width of the cab from the mirror on this side to the mirror on that side, and then I can just turn and look at the monitors just like you would in a real truck. Actually, I was about to say, not that I've driven a real truck, I have for a very short period of time, a long time ago. But you know, like if you were in a car, you can turn and look at the mirrors, and because then the screen doesn't move, I don't start trying to drive off the edge of the screen. Or if the screen does move, it means that the truck's wandering, which is what would happen in real life, of course, if you saw movement. And yet for Farming Simulator I can drive with track IR. Bit odd. Mind you, that is a game which got a lot better for me personally with the track IR support. Being able to sort of just turn around and look at the couplings, or you move your head just to one side, kind of like that, just to see around the exhaust stack. Or made it a lot more interesting to play the game just driving from within the cab. Oh, maybe I may even play Train Simulator again. Now that's got track IR support as well. We also have the new version, but I'm not sure my computer will play it more than about 15 FPS. Maybe I'll have a go at that. Yeah, so to play that I will eventually have to get a new computer, or at the very least a new graphics card. Probably a whole brand new computer. I think so I've got an i7 at 2.4 gigs and I can overclock it to about 4 if necessary, but that probably will be powerful enough for a new graphics card, but I might as well get a complete setup. Because I use Coral Painter, and that would benefit from having a little bit more processing power available. Although again, the graphics card will make a significant amount of difference to that as well. I wonder if there's enough dots in here to finish all these number 3s that are around here. There's often more than it looks. Two, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. Ah, there's enough. That's good, saves me getting any more out. This tapping that I'm doing here is to get them to flip over, because you need to pick them up the right way. If you don't, they don't stick, and they don't sparkle either. You have to tap hard enough for them to bounce and turn over, but gently enough that you don't bounce them out of the tray all over the floor. One more. So there isn't one the right way up, is there? No. What I won't be able to do now is get one of these. I was going to say I won't be able to get one of these to turn over, and then it did. Right, that's all the number 3. And I've done number 4. So the next colour wouldn't have been number 5. But I don't think I'll start that now. We're at 1/4 to. It would be a bit of an early end to the stream, especially given that I started a little bit late. But I don't really want to get another set of colours out for 10 minutes, which is what it would be. So I think what I will do at this point is call it a day. I'll go have a drink because I think I'm getting a bit of a headache, and the drink will help. Go say hello to Lady Zara, and we'll carry on with this on the next stream. So when's the next stream? I don't think I'm streaming tomorrow night. Fairly sure I won't be streaming tomorrow night. So, as I mentioned, that's my birthday, so it's a family event. Don't know what we're doing. Or maybe that's what being suggested I don't stream, so maybe something's going to happen. I don't know, we shall see. But, so the next stream will be on Tuesday the 13th, day after tomorrow. Start will be at approximately soon after 7 PM UK time, as I'm able to do. That's subject to evening meals and things like that. And then we'll go on for about 2 hours. Probably doing some more of this. Start with the number 5. See if we can get through all of that, because there's a lot of number 5 on there. Add a lot of the lighter coloured fur in for the tiger. If you want to see any earlier versions of this or different Magic Dot stuff, there will be some VODs still on here on Twitch, together with the end of the carving of the feral gibberer, which you can take a look at. Earlier than that, though, there's a lot of videos, some 400 plus videos, 800 plus hours of video on YouTube. They're all the recordings from here on Twitch, so you can see the complete Zeraganard archive. About 2 or 3 right at the start, the very earliest, which I did not record and didn't realise weren't recorded until they were no longer available on Twitch. So the very first few broadcasts of Zeraganard are unfortunately lost to history, but never mind. So if you want to see any of those, youtube.com/Zeraganard. And if you'd like to be notified when I start streaming again, of course, as here on Twitch, you can follow me up at the top button there. You can also follow me on Twitter. I'm twitter.com/Zeraganard, @Zeraganard. You might be getting the sort of pattern by now. And I tweet when I go live, and if there's a reason why I can't go live for whatever reason, then I will actually tweet that as well, so that those people who want to follow and come and see know, unfortunately, that I'm not going to be able to do. Saves you some time. Let you watch something else. What else should I say? Well, of course, there's the websites, zeraganard.com. Told you there was a pattern there, which is mine, which starts to tell a little bit more about some of the crafts, but it's a work in progress. But an interesting one, I hope, if you want to take a look at it. And there's the Etsy shop, zeraganard.etsy.com. It's the other way around, but you can see the pattern again. And that's where a lot of the jewellery, the chainmail that you will have seen or could see made on this channel, and some of the beadwork is also available. And as time allows, some of the carving and other pyrography will be going up on there, specifically, for example, the 2 Hearthstone cards. And finally, I guess, if you'd like to support the channel, which would be absolutely fantastic if you consider it, then there's the 2 buttons at the top right, proceeds of which go towards buying whatever it is that we use on the stream, and the equipment for the stream, like the cameras, and because it would be nice to have another camera that is used for close-up on some of the other work. This one's not so bad for this, but when you're trying to do close-ups on things like carving, this gets in its way. A handheld one would be quite nice. That sort of thing. That's sort of thing. Not intending to actually buy another camera just yet, because I want a different mount for this one. For example, I want a microphone stand type mount, so this can peek over my shoulder, rather than having this frame, which this angle poise type frame, which actually doesn't work that well, unfortunately. Thought it would, but it doesn't. It vibrates if I'm carving, and if it means I can't carve stood up like this, because the camera doesn't reach if I mount it on the other desk. I'm rambling, but just giving an explanation. So what I will do is I'll hope to see you on the next stream, which will Be Tuesday evening. Bye for now.
a shampoo, lost and found. If you have no heart, you hear no sound. If you come up short, it'll come around. If you're too far up, just come down. Get what you give and take what you need. No need to take sides, just feel in between. Find your place in serenity. Find your inner melody. Find your place in serenity. We're not meant to last, we're meant to live. We're meant to breathe, we go too fast, we need to see. Balance is the key. Serenity. Find your place in serenity. Find your inner melody.
Wow.